Hey everyone, before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. When my wife, Emily, looked me in the eye that night and said, "Intimacy isn't a two-way thing, Michael. It's about how I feel, not you," something inside me froze. The room went quiet, but in my head it was chaos. The woman I once thought was my partner had just told me, in the calmest tone imaginable, that my needs didn't matter. I remember staring at her trying to decide if she was serious or just angry, but she wasn't joking. She said it like she was reciting a fact, like gravity existed and my desires didn't. For years I had believed our marriage was built on mutual respect, that we both cared, gave, and loved equally. I was wrong. That night made me see it all differently. The distance between us wasn't just emotional anymore. It was something deeper. Like she had quietly redrawn the boundaries of what it meant to be husband and wife. I thought back to the little things, the subtle rejections, the excuses, the nights she said she was tired, or the morning she turned her back as I reached for her hand. I always told myself it was stress, or maybe she wasn't feeling well. I kept giving her space, believing she'd come around. But she didn't. She built walls instead. When I asked what changed, she just sighed and said, "You wouldn't understand." That sentence carried more distance than 1,000 miles could. I sat on the edge of the bed, the glow from the lamp hitting her face, and for the first time, I saw someone who wasn't looking at me as her husband, just a man who existed beside her. I spent the next few days moving through the house like a ghost. I still made her coffee, still fixed the leaky faucet, still asked how her day was, but her replies grew shorter, colder. I realized that I was holding on to a version of Emily that no longer existed. Then one evening I came home early. She was on the couch, scrolling through her phone, laughing at something. When she noticed me, her smile vanished. I asked gently, "Do you even want this marriage anymore?" She didn't look up. She just muttered, "I want peace, Michael. You take too much of my energy." And that's when I decided I wouldn't beg anymore. I stopped asking for affection. I stopped waiting for her to notice me, to touch me, or to even speak to me with kindness. I became silent, but not out of defeat, out of understanding. You can't force someone to love you the way you love them. And if you try, you only end up breaking yourself in the process. Emily noticed the change after a few days. She'd come home and find dinner on the table, but I wouldn't sit with her. I'd eat early, clean up, and retreat to my study. The silence unnerved her. One night she asked, "Why are you acting like this?" I simply said, "I'm matching your energy." Her eyes widened for a second before narrowing again. "So now you're punishing me by ignoring me?" she snapped. I looked at her calmly. "No, Emily. I'm just giving you what you said you wanted, peace." That word hit her like a mirror. Peace. The very thing she said I took away. But peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the absence of effort from someone who's already given everything. A week later, she started asking questions she hadn't asked in months. "Why don't you text me during work anymore? You didn't say goodnight last night. Are you upset with me?" Each time I gave her the same answer. A small smile in silence. She didn't understand that I wasn't angry. I was done. Then came the night that changed everything. She stood in the kitchen holding her glass of wine, watching me pack a small bag. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Where are you going?" I zipped the bag and said, "To find what intimacy really means. Something you made clear doesn't exist here anymore." Her glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. "So that's it? You're leaving?" I nodded. "I'm not leaving, Emily. I'm stepping away from the person you've turned me into." For the first time in a long time, she didn't have a comeback. No sarcasm, no cold tone. Just silence. Maybe she finally realized that I wasn't bluffing. That a man who's quiet isn't weak. He's exhausted. I walked out that night and stayed at a small motel near the lake. The room was simple, quiet, and empty, but for the first time in months I felt peace. Real peace. I didn't check my phone. I didn't think about her. I just stared at the ceiling, letting the stillness fill the spaces where her rejection used to live. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls from Emily. A few messages followed, short, uncertain ones. "Where are you? We need to talk. Please come home." I didn't reply. I wanted to, but I knew that responding too soon would only drag me back into the same cycle. It's funny how people only realize your worth when your presence becomes uncertain. 2 days passed before I went back home, not because I missed her, but because I needed closure. When I walked through the door, Emily was sitting on the couch, her eyes swollen and red. She looked up at me like she'd been waiting for hours. "You really weren't going to come back, were you?" she whispered. I shrugged slightly. I hadn't decided. She stood up, walked toward me, and said the words I never thought I'd hear. "I was wrong, Michael. I made you feel small. I made us feel one-sided." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman I fell in love with, vulnerable, honest, human. But the problem was I didn't feel anything anymore. Not anger, not affection, not even relief. Just a quiet acceptance that something inside us had died long ago. I said softly, "You didn't just make it one-sided, Emily. You taught me what loneliness feels like, even when someone's lying right next to you." Tears streamed down her face. "Can we start over?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I took a deep breath and replied, "Start over with who? You're not the same person I married. And honestly, I'm not the same man who begged for your touch." She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. The gesture felt forced, like she was trying to fix something with memories that no longer fit. Before leaving, I looked around the house. Every photo, every small reminder of what we once had. It all looked hollow now. I turned to her and said, "You said intimacy wasn't a two-way thing. You were right, it isn't. It's about connection, and we lost ours the day you stopped seeing me as your partner." Emily's lips parted, but no words came out. Her silence said everything. As I walked out for the last time, I realized that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to fight for love. It's to let go with dignity. And that's how my silence became louder than any argument we ever had.